Have you ever felt this really strange, unexplainable lump in your throat?
Oh, yeah. Like something is just physically stuck right there.
Right. You swallow, you clear your throat, maybe you grab a glass of water or cough a little bit, but well, it will not go away.
It is incredibly frustrating.
It totally is. Or, maybe you or someone you know has gone in for a routine medical scan, and you have to deal with the sheer panic of a doctor finding mysterious nodules or fibroids.
Yeah, and usually when something like that shows up on a scan, our immediate instinct is to treat it like a home invasion.
Exactly, a home invasion. We zero in on that one specific spot on the x-ray. We want to know exactly what the intruder is, and, we want to know how quickly we can just cut it out or dissolve it.
Right, we draw this tight little circle around the problem and completely isolate it from the rest of the environment. And, modern medicine is incredibly effective at that localized, highly targeted extraction.
It really is.
But by focusing so intensely on the physical object itself, we often forget to ask a much more important question.
Which is what?
What environmental conditions actually allowed that object to form in the first place?
And that is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are pulling from a really fascinating text called Stagnant Streams, The Flow of Vitality and Healing, to figure out why zeroing in on that one spot might, actually be missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah, it's a completely different perspective.
The goal for this deep dive is to decode these stubborn bodily symptoms for you. We are going to look at these lumps and nodules not as random, isolated invaders, but as crucial pieces of evidence that points to a much larger, incredibly complex internal ecosystem.
So to really understand that ecosystem, we have to look at the core premise of this text, which stems from traditional Chinese medicine. The text basically asks you to completely reimagine your internal anatomy.
Okay, reimagine it how?
Well, instead of picturing your body's energy, its qi and its blood vessels as this static network of hollow, lifeless pipes, you need to visualize a dynamic, living network of rivers.
A network of rivers. Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that for a second. Because in nature, a healthy river has this strong, steady current that continuously shapes the landscape.
Right, it's always moving.
Yeah, and it carries sediment along with it effortlessly.
But, and here's the key, consider what happens when that current loses its momentum.
It slows down.
Exactly. When a river slows down, the carrying capacity of the water just drops. The natural sand, mud, and debris that's usually carried within those streams, it begins to settle at the bottom.
And over time, that sediment just piles up.
Yes. And when the flow of vitality and healing slows down in the human body, the exact same principle applies.
So the lump in the throat, the nodule, the fibroid, the text is essentially arguing that these aren't just random cellular mutations growing out of nowhere.
No, not at all.
They're biological sandbars. I love that image. They are the accumulated silt left behind by a sluggish internal current.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the traditional term the text uses to describe this phenomenon of buildup is Zheng Jia Ji Ju.
Zheng Jia Ji Ju. Okay, let's translate that conceptually for the listener. What kind of physical mass are we actually talking about here?
Well, it actually represents a whole spectrum of accumulation. So Zheng generally refers to masses that are hard.
Like physically hard to the touch.
Right, hard, fixed in a specific location, and often associated with blood. Then you have Jia, which refers to masses that are softer. They might seem to move around or come and go, which is often associated with stagnant energy or qi.
Okay, so hard and fixed versus soft and moving.
Exactly. But the philosophical weight of this term is really what matters most here. The text uses Zheng Jia Ji Ju to urge a complete shift in how you view disease.
It's arguing against staring intensely at the localized point of the disease, right? The literal lump.
Yes, you have to pull back and look at the broader surface. That surface is a vast, interconnected web woven together by three vital elements moving through the body: qi, blood, and water.
Okay, let's see if we can ground this in a modern framework for you listening. Imagine your body is the plumbing and water grid of a massive city.
Okay, I like this.
If the water pressure drops across the entire metropolitan area, the water sitting in the pipes slows to a crawl. And when water just sits there, mineral deposits start to gunk up the system.
Right, calcification happens.
Exactly. So a local plumber might come in, look under your kitchen sink, and say, hey, the pipe is clogged. They swap out that one piece of PVC.
Treating the point.
Treating the point. But this text is demanding that we step back and look at the main reservoir. We need to figure out why the citywide water pressure is failing in the first place.
The limitation of the plumbing analogy, though, is that, well, pipes are dead metal or plastic.
Right, they don't change.
Yeah, but your internal rivers are made of living tissue. They react to your environment, your emotions, your daily habits.
Oh, that's true.
So if you just swap the pipe under the sink, but you leave the citywide pressure dangerously low, another blockage is guaranteed to happen in a completely different neighborhood next month.
Because you haven't solved the environmental condition that allowed the buildup to occur.
Exactly. You have to treat the whole surface, the pressure, the flow, the fluid itself.
Man, that makes a lot of sense. And that actually brings us to the central question of this deep dive. If we accept the premise that a drop in our internal water pressure causes these biological sandbars to form, what is actually causing the flow to slow down?
Well, the text outlines 3 distinct culprits.
3 entirely different ways your internal rivers can fail you. Let's get into them. The first one deals with the architecture of the channel itself, the banks of the river, so to speak.
Right. The text calls this first pathology chi stagnation. And when we look at the clinical symptoms associated with this type of blockage, they really blur the line between psychology and physiology.
Well, so?
The primary indicators are being easily tense, feeling constantly anxious, and experiencing interrupted, restless sleep.
Okay, I need to play the skeptic here for a second, because this is where I think a lot of people might hit a wall.
Fair enough.
I understand a physical blockage, like a cholesterol plaque narrowing an artery. But you are suggesting that my psychological stress, the fact that I'm anxious about a Tuesday morning deadline, or tossing and turning at 3 a.m. is somehow physically squeezing my internal rivers.
I know.
It just sounds like a metaphor stretched a little too far into mysticism.
It definitely sounds mystical until you map it directly onto modern physiology. Think about what happens to your body when you are anxious.
My heart races.
Right. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in. Your body releases cortisol and adrenaline. Your smooth muscle tissue contracts.
Okay, I'm with you.
Your literal blood vessels undergo vasoconstriction. They physically narrow.
Oh, wow.
The text uses the metaphor of a river trying to push its normal volume of water through a sudden, tight constriction in a canyon. Your emotional tension is physically narrowing the canyon walls of your internal channels.
Okay, when you frame it as vasoconstriction and muscle tension acting as this, physical vice grip on the vessels, that makes total sense. It actually reminds me of a garden hose.
Oh, yeah, how so?
So you have the spigot turned on, the water is flowing beautifully out to the sprinkler, but then you walk over and you kink the hose in half.
Right.
The water doesn't just calmly stop, the pressure builds up wildly right behind the kink. The hose bulges out.
Exactly. The energy of the river becomes volatile and erratic. It either violently breaches the banks, which, by the way, might manifest as sudden bursts of irritability or tension headaches.
Right.
Or it creates a massive stagnant backup right behind the bottleneck.
And if any water does get through that kink in the hose, it's sputtering, it's turbulent, it completely ruins that smooth, life-giving flow.
Your anxiety and tension are the kink in the hose. When the flow becomes turbulent or backed up, the impurities, the cellular waste, the stagnant energy, the silt simply drops out of the current.
It just falls out.
Yes, it deposits right there at the site of the bottleneck. That unexplainable lump in your throat when you're stressed out.
Yeah.
That is often the literal sensation of key stagnation. It's a localized spasm, a narrowing, where energy and fluids are backing up.
That is wild. We tend to think of emotions as these invisible, ethereal things that just float around in our heads. This text really forces you to realize that emotions have mass. They have architectural consequences in the body.
They absolutely do.
But, okay, let's look at the second culprit. Let's say someone is the most relaxed person on earth. They meditate, they have zero tension, their river channels are wide open. Can they still get these blockages?
They absolutely can, because the second blockage moves away from the container and looks directly at the contents.
The fluid itself.
Right. The text refers to this as blood stasis. Your riverbanks might be perfectly wide and healthy, but if the fluid itself has changed consistency, the river will still stall.
And the symptoms shift drastically for blood stasis, right? We aren't talking about tension and bad sleep anymore.
No, completely different.
The text highlights localized, stabbing body pain, and specifically for women, menstrual blood clots.
Right. And to explain how this happens, the text leans into some highly relatable culinary imagery. It asks you to visualize a hot pot meal.
Oh, I love hot pot.
Me too. At the beginning of the dinner, the broth is light, it's boiling rapidly, it has great movement.
Yeah, very fluid.
But picture that same hot pot broth after it has been boiling on the stove for like 3 or 4 hours.
Oh, yeah. the water evaporates.
Exactly. The water evaporates, the starches from the ingredients break down, and that once light broth becomes thick, heavy, and sludgy.
Hmm.
It completely loses its fundamental fluidity.
It basically turns into a gravy. You can't circulate a gravy through a fine network of pipes.
You really can't.
But the text uses another metaphor that I think gets even closer to explaining the physical symptoms. It compares blood stasis to cooled sugar water.
Yes, the sugar crystal metaphor is so visceral. When you heat up water and stir in sugar, the particles dissolve completely. The liquid flows perfectly.
Right.
But as that saturated liquid cools down to room temperature, the dissolved particles transform back into solids. They crystallize.
They literally drop out of the fluid and sink to the bottom.
Ex-
Let's apply that crystallization directly to the human body because, a smart listener knows how sugar works in a kitchen, but what does that actually feel like inside a vein or a capillary?
Well, it explains the specific nature of the pain associated with blood stasis. This isn't a vague, dull ache like muscle soreness.
No.
This is often a sharp, fixed, stabbing pain. The once smooth liquid of your blood has essentially become laden with microscopic, jagged solids.
Oh,
Yeah. When thick, sludgy blood or literal crystallized blockages are forced through the body's delicate, microscopic capillaries, it causes immense friction.
So the pain is the physical friction of sludge scraping through a delicate ecosystem. It's literally causing microtraumas all along the vessel wall.
Exactly. And those menstrual blood clots mentioned in the text are the most literal manifestation of the sugar crystals metaphor.
That makes total sense.
They are fluid that has cooled and congealed into a solid mass because the dynamic movement and the warming vitality of the body's energy were lacking. When the quality of the water becomes thick and sludgy, the mud piles up into nodules and masses, regardless of how wide the riverbanks are.
Wow. Okay, so we have kinked hoses from stress, and we have sludgy hot pot broth from poor fluid quality. Let's look at the third and final category. This one seems to deal with the baseline state of the water itself.
Yeah, this third blockage is perhaps the most profound because it deals with the absolute foundation of the body's ecosystem. The text calls this water retention.
Okay, I am looking at the symptom list for water retention, and we really need to spend some time here because there is a glaring paradox.
There definitely is.
The text links this type of blockage to having eczema, being prone to edema, which is physical swelling and fluid retention, and drinking very little water.
The imagery used for this pathology is incredibly dramatic. We aren't talking about a kinked hose or thick soup anymore.
What are we talking about?
The text states that the body's water transforms into something with virtually zero fluidity. It compares it to molten magma or a slow-moving glacier.
A glacier? That implies something massive, cold, and almost completely frozen in place. It's practically geological in its movement.
Right.
I can easily picture how any debris trapped in a glacier would just settle into hard formations. But, okay, you have to connect the dots on this paradox for me.
I know, it sounds backwards.
It really does. The text explicitly states that drinking little water leads to swelling. If someone is retaining water and puffing up with edema, the common sense assumption is that they have too much water in their system.
That they need to dry out.
Right. How on earth does a lack of water intake create a glacier-like flood in the body?
It is entirely counterintuitive to how we normally think about hydration, but it makes perfect sense within the ecosystem model.
Okay, explain.
Consider the difference between a stagnant pond and a clear running mountain stream. The only thing keeping that stream clear is the continuous input of fresh water washing the old water away. Continuous fresh input creates continuous cleansing output.
Right, so if you dam up the fresh water coming in, the pond just sits there, it gets murky, it grows algae, it stagnates.
Exactly. When you drink very little water over a long period, your body's ecosystem enters a state of perceived drought.
Oh, wow.
The body's survival mechanism kicks in and it panics. It begins hoarding whatever water it already has in the tissues.
Because it doesn't know when the next drink is coming.
Right, but because there is no fresh water coming in to flush the system, that retained water just sits there. It becomes stale. It becomes the stagnant pond.
Oh my gosh. So the edema, the swelling in the ankles or the hands, isn't an abundance of healthy flowing hydration. Your body is desperately hoarding old, dirty, stagnant water in the superficial tissues.
Exactly. And because this old water isn't flowing, because it has turned into a sluggish, heavy glacier, it completely loses its ability to transport cellular waste.
Right, because the carrying capacity drops, like we talked about earlier.
Yes. Your body still generates metabolic waste, heat, and toxins. But but the internal rivers are too frozen to carry them away to the proper elimination organs.
Which explains the connection to eczema.
Yeah.
Eczema is the physical manifestation of that trapped, stagnant, dirty water trying to find an emergency exit through the skin.
You nailed it. The skin becomes the pressure valve for a toxic, non-flowing environment. A lack of fresh water coming in causes the existing internal waters to turn heavy and immobile.
And so the sediment drops to the bottom.
Right, forming the nodules and fibroids deep in the body, while the stagnant moisture seeps outward into the tissues, causing the visible swelling and the skin issues.
That completely flips the standard understanding of hydration on its head. It is not about the sheer volume of water in your body. It is about the velocity of the water.
The velocity. That is the perfect word for it.
If there is no velocity, you get a glacier.
You need the dynamic flow to maintain the vitality. Without movement, even pure water eventually becomes a swamp.
We have taken a fascinating journey through 3 entirely different mechanisms that cause our internal rivers to fail.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. We have the narrow banks of key stagnation, where daily anxiety and emotional tension physically constrict our channels.
Like a kinked hose.
Exactly. Then we have the thick, sludgy water of blood stasis, where poor fluid quality creates painful friction and jagged microtraumas.
The sugar crystals.
Yes. And finally, we have the heavy frozen glacier of water retention, where a lack of fresh input forces the body to hoard toxic, stagnant moisture.
And this brings us back to the ultimate unifying philosophy of the text, the core lesson regarding how we should approach healing.
The text makes a very definitive statement toward the end. It says, when the river starts flowing again, the blockage finally has a chance to dissolve.
It is an incredibly elegant approach to medicine.
It really is. You cannot simply go in and surgically extract the localized lump, the Zheng Jia Ji Ju, without treating the overall flow of the qi, the blood, and the water.
Because if you just scoop the sand out of the river, but you do absolutely nothing to fix the sluggish current, the sand is just going to pile right back up in the exact same spot tomorrow.
It is a profound call to observe the entire landscape of your health rather than just obsessing over the isolated landmarks of disease.
You have to repair the environmental conditions that allowed the blockage to materialize.
So, what does this mean for you, listening to this right now? We started this deep dive talking about that frustrating, unexplainable lump in the throat, or the mysterious nodules on a scan.
Yeah.
We have seen how they aren't random, unlucky growths. They are the silt left behind by a struggling ecosystem trying to communicate with you.
Which leaves us with a question to ponder long after this conversation ends.
What's that?
If our bodies truly are these intricate, highly sensitive river ecosystems, directly shaped by our daily tension, our fluid intake, and our energetic flow, well, what subtle everyday habits might be silently damming up your own internal streams right now, long before a physical nodule ever appears on a doctor's radar?
Wow, that is a powerful concept to hold on to the next time you feel your shoulders creeping up to your ears with tension, or you notice you have barely had a glass of water all day. It is all deeply connected.
It really is.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of your internal rivers. Keep your ecosystem vibrant, keep those streams flowing, and keep questioning the surface of things. We will see you on the next deep dive.